now. Okay.
All right. So you were Juan, you were saying, what can we do in terms, or what opportunities are there, in light of the recent mass layoffs in the tech space, right? You have many developers and their families that face financial hardships. You mentioned, hey, setting up stake pools, for example, right? So I have two very different ideas about it. The first one is all about the opportunity for Locks as a company.
Mhm.
Um, So that one is actually the ones that are not directly affected by the layoffs are still affected, right? Because you see your colleagues leave their place of employment involuntarily, and you might feel, oh God, I'm next. There's some form of disengagement, right? Potentially. Um, But we also have to realize that, we're in a capitalist society and those companies unfortunately do the right thing, right? So so what the companies need to do is and they try to do that, to keep their most talented, performance skilled, whatever their metrics are, but essentially their best people happy and engaged. And uh, retain them at a company and have them be productive. That is, I think, our opportunity, right? Because we like the way I'm still trying to frame it better, because it's not primarily just mediation services in a way of, or there's a huge dispute, right? It is a lot of helping communication. It helps with engagement. That is the value that we provide. So make the workplace happier, perceived to be more equitable for the people who are still there, right? And be the company in its reduced personal size, be more effective. That is the value that we provide, right? So dispersing fears, but then also just bring up the level of honesty. Because if you and that's also the thing. It's not like yeah. So the company is essentially helping them. They made a tough decision, right? Laid off many people, but they still want to be good companies for the people who remain. And some companies like Stripe, for example, they did exceptionally well in communicating that, and they have their like alumni and whatnot. Even Meta's response was much better than Twitter's, for example, right? To the mass layoffs. Um, so like any type of conflict, including external conflict, right? And employees with private life conflicts, right? Offer them our services and employee benefit, and communicating to utilize the service. So if you have a problem, if you feel like, hey, I'm going to be next, facilitate a communication with your manager, with a neutral third party. That's one of the values that we provide, because that if you go through the process, you get more clarity and you get that engagement, right? So you'll make your already good workers better. That's one value that I see. Um, the other thing is, you mentioned so mass layoffs, for example, Meta, for example, and whatnot, and I have split opinions about that. Um, but the initial reaction, which I had shared on a call with Victor earlier, was that I did actually quote tweet last night. I always make my worst tweets at night, because my judgment, my morale, my ethics, they always drop down like a couple of magnitudes. But essentially, there's this funded, not fired initiative, right? Where again, a bunch of people with money give 100K or so, relatively with few questions asked, to former employees that were affected by the mass layoffs, like the Stripes, the Meta, the Twitter, whatever, Netflix a couple of months ago, right? So pretty much everyone in the industry. But here, this is what I'm thinking, and this is also due to observation, just of interviewing hundreds of people myself, is that these companies are not startups in a sense anymore, right? Because the way they're perceived by employees is it's a big corporation, there's job security, all these benefits, perks, right? But then also the inflated salary. And the inflated salaries were there. It's not because, hey, you're not worth $500,000 every year, but most likely you're gonna be worth it more here than I can't afford the other company have you. So I'm gonna inflate your salary and I try really, really hard because this is how capitalism works. It's a competition against it's a zero-sum game, right? And so people that were in a position that had no interest of being entrepreneurial, they might want to work on greenfield projects like, you know, I want something new. I don't want to deal with like old code bases. You know, I can write my own thing so much better, blah, 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 right? Inflated ego often is also the case there. And, you know, you have that nice cushiony corporate job. And you're probably employee number, I don't know, 200,000 or something like that. And now you know, those money givers, VCs, provide you this, oh, you're fired, but you worked at these companies that were really innovative, thus we think you're innovative, even though you're employee or 50,000 or whatever. That does not go into my brain. Like a person that went into this place, you know, for job security, a salary, and do you work on cool stuff? Yeah, most likely. There's a lot of proprietary tech that is really, really incredible at places like Google, for example, right? But then now you run your own startup, really, with 100K. That doesn't compute. Like this idea doesn't, like, I don't get it. Will there be a handful or probably more people who, you know, after a time of you know, trying to figure out what's important to them, will run their own startup? Yeah, absolutely. They might not need your 100K because they went to the startup in the first place, because, you know, even in San Francisco, you can probably save a little bit of money if you get that much of a high salary, so you can get your financial cushion to, you know, to bootstrap your own business, right? There are going to be people like
would it be
that.
a good idea? Excuse me for interrupting here, just because
No,
I know I'll forget. Would it be a good idea for a company like Lux to lobby capital funding companies to fund all these ideas that we know are very good, that are going to all these people that is working things that are exceptional, that are going to be successful, but their thing is not funding. Their thing is not going knocking doors asking for money. But would it be a good opportunity for you guys as a company to develop the branch and start, you know, lobbying funding mechanisms and companies to create different startups? Just thinking, because I know we have an opportunity there, a huge one.
Yeah, there's an opportunity, and I think that the answer depends on the company, because I think this is a time for many organizations to refocus, right? And they have shut down actually a lot of their own internal startups, right? So projects that have a discretionary budget, that even on a managerial level are mostly operating as their own startup. I've been actually working in one of those. I was a Supply Hub, which was funded essentially by Deco Lightning. I was the first technical hire after the CTO, and then I became the CTO later. And they operated like that, and that was very lucrative for that company, very lucrative. Because on one side they had way over 1,000 workers that were mostly very cheap labor, and then on the other side you had me and the people I hired, a small team of like, I think at the end we were like 4 or 5 people, all engineers, and we were, I never saw the numbers, but I imagine probably as profitable, if not more, than the other side, because they worked with lower margins. So I still believe that is going to be the case in some instances, but I think this is a time where organizations focus more on the core business and shut down those experiments, I think.
So you think there is no funding, there will be no interest out there to fund?
I think there might be some. For us at Logs, actually, we made a decision. It's actually better to try to bootstrap mostly. There is a potential for some small investment that gets us over the next year, even if we wouldn't get any revenue while building out our new core projects. But we kind of want to go to project market fit and then raise, because then we know every dollar spent actually gets us at least another, gets us that dollar back. That's our current stance on how we operate, and I'm obviously biased to think that this is the smarter approach. But then again, I cannot conceive the workings of like Apple, for example. Like,
right.
Ask me in 10 years again, right? It's like $1 trillion company. It's like, yeah, I've
Of
been
course.
there.
Yeah, but the thing is to start developing a portfolio of fronts that you can outsource in any time, like a life of a product, the product start.
Right. Yeah, so we really try to
process.
focus, because that's the thing, right? So I'm really hesitant to talk about my big vision. And so I have to do a balance act, right? Because if I only talk about the talent retention service, for example, that we offer to innovative organizations, permanent businesses. So I should really say to businesses. That it looks very, very narrow, and it's also a new market for many. So even if I were to talk to investors, I was like, huh, what? Like the VCs I talked to, and like my numbers were too low, and I made those numbers up because, like, okay, I think this is the absolute low end, like quote unquote safe numbers. I know everybody thinks of safe numbers like, oh yeah, this is the low end, right? But then they use inflated numbers. It's like, no, this is like very, very low. And for many VCs, it was like, yeah, it's, the market is not big enough. But at the same time, it's a new market. I can't even say what's extra, what's beyond the actual market that we focus on. And this is also the problem, like with intangibles in general, like because we're not manufacturing, it's mostly IP, right? That we have in value. And like I think there's the metric like our companies are like 16% of our actual value. That's an older number now that we are entering a recession and like valuations come down anyway. So I don't know. By the end of the day, I had a conversation with a friend of mine from Germany, and it's like, yeah, the valuations in the US are just wild.
Yeah,
and it's just so inflated.
Overinflated.
So
And
that's
but
also
that's my concern, because I mean, that's what I work with, real estate. So I know that the
right.
property value now is incredibly inflated. So the thing is, after all this, then things that are valuing is you start paying for a brick and mortar, or for the location, or for the. So right, but the reality is that going back to what I was saying, is that there is an opportunity, and if it is unlocked, I see that someone should take advantage of that opportunity, because that will help a lot of people, a lot of our friends that are, here. Actually, you know, Alex is there per se.
Right.
I know that Alex has have a good opportunity to work in a project. It's
Right.
just a
I
matter
mean,
of
that's
just
right. So I was also hoping. So as you know, we let go of our entire engineering team because, and part of it was IO's fault, of course. Actually, us letting go of the engineering team, that has nothing to do with IO. But the long story is that, it was not up to par, and I was like very, very hands off after the very beginning stages, and it's like, this is not good. So I was hoping by the time now, like, we would have grown our team, because I did all of the forecasts, like by now, or actually by Q2 of next year, I wanted to have 6 dedicated project teams, right? With senior lead, at least 2 mid engineers, 1 junior, to train the next generation, product designer, UX designer, blah 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 blah. Right. So by mid 2023, I wanted to be at least 50 people strong organization. This is not going to happen at all. I can tell you this is not likely. And because we were thinking of, okay, because I've been working in tech for 20 years professionally, it's like, yeah, we are a tech company, but really not. Tech is incredibly important, but we're not a tech company.
right.
We are building tech, or mostly using existing tech to, piece together new services and connect them with real human beings to be utilized. And in a couple of years, there's going to be an increased effort on machine learning, on artificial intelligence, to make our services better for humans, right? So, and it is, and I think that's also the reason why, even Victor is spending a lot more time now on getting better at software engineering, because this is our core technology, right? This is important. It has to be a strong foundation, because if it's not a strong foundation, if you bring in, whether that be employee or worse, a contractor, we're going to be arriving at the same point where I'll say, it's like, you know what, this is crap. Like, this is not manageable if we want to iterate on this, which we want to, because we want to be close to our users and make the services continuously better. If it takes a whole month or more to implement a simple feature that should be implemented in 2 days at a maximum, including testing, that's not how we can operate. And we need to be able to move fast. But moving fast doesn't mean building stuff on fragile ground, because by the end of it, you'll take more and more time to rebuild the whole thing. And I think that's also, unfortunately, a truth that hopefully more engineers, that especially the ones that are laid off, will recognize, that they are not being paid to hit the keyboard or browse Stack Overflow, right, or Google stuff. They're paid to problem solve, to bring business value,
Troubleshoot.
and to really provide value. And I think you mentioned culture earlier. That is really, really important to communicate. It's like, yeah, I respect your coding skills and I'll assess for that, and I'll expect you to get better at them, because there's a business value behind it. And our business value that we provide hopefully aligns with your values as a human being as well. And so I've been, compared to over a year ago, right, where Lox was founded, and I really wanted to, you know, get everyone on board. And the more people you have, it doesn't necessarily mean it's easier. So I interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people, and I would take many interviews. And now most applications that I still get for positions, I'll just decline because they're not meeting the standard. Like there's absolutely nothing in there that, I mean, some bars are really, really low. Like if you don't, in your application as a software engineer, and I'm totally biased in that, and I wish there was a setting that on AngelList, for example, that if you don't have an if you don't have a GitHub or a GitLab or whatever code repository you have on there, if you don't even have the link, you can't even apply, because I'm not going to hire you. There's no way at this point in time I'm going to hire you. If I'm, as the CEO, have more activity, not just over the like even just the last year alone, that's a red flag.
Right.
If you don't code daily, or you can show me that the code that you provide is of actual value, and not like this, you see that often, like at people that you know, study computer science. You have like 12 weeks or so, you see on GitHub, like block here, and then maybe later in the year another block there, and nothing in between. It's like, you just went in there for the money, and sorry, this is not gonna work. If you just went in there for the money, and you can work for the money, and yeah, absolutely, you should make a living, but if that's all you care about, you are not going to be happy at my organization, because my expectations are high. You're not going to be performing well here. If you want to be handheld and babied and treated as an internship, as a corporation that, you know, has dedicated resources available, and you absolutely cannot figure things out unless you see a outdated video on Coursera on the technology and can't read official documentation, this is not going to be it. And I'm
Right.
so harsh on this right now, but I honestly cannot operate at this point in time any other way. I have 16-hour days usually. I'm taking it easy today with, you know, talking your ears off and venting. So I appreciate that
No, of course.
opportunity.
I mean, I've been thinking, and I actually experiment, and I see that the model, that the traditional model of being or having employees doesn't work for me. I mean, I think it's especially for this industry, and for what the tendency and what I see works better is to have people self-motivated, or teams or companies, if you will, self-motivated with the same direct vision that you have, working independently with the specific KPIs that you guys share, and that what I will share with them, and in that way you don't have all those requirements, because the KPIs are the ones that are going to. I mean, whoever, and
Right.
the money comes from the production, not for the time you spend on the seat or
Right.
on the keyboard, you know. So those
Right.
are the things that I believe needs to be implemented. And I know, and again, going back to the initial idea of looking for a solution for what we, not even going to the whole layoffs scenario that is happening in technology, but just us, our friends, our neighbors, you know, people in Jimbo Labs, people in that are working, and you see that they are doing awesome job, and they have the capability and all that, and they need. I mean, they put the time to be on the keyboard or to produce ideas and all that, and they can be part of a team, an independent team that can make. I mean, ridiculous amount of production in terms of money, or whatever way you want to call it. But
Right.
yeah,
I think there's a opportunity for many things. So one thing, Gimbal Labs, I think, and James is working on it, obviously, that Gimbal Labs increases their own capacity, trains people to become better developers, and then also connects them with paying clients, essentially, right? So Gimbal Labs are almost acting as a dev shop. I think that is one of the ways Gimbal Labs can become profitable as well. And but as you say, there's also more of an ad hoc nature as well. So I think there's a lot of open source ideas that I have, projects that, or products rather, that we would want to use internally, but then also we would like to open source and have a developer community around it. But again, this now is a question of, okay, well, this is going to be Cardano based, for example, right? So I think there's a lot more, especially with the shift to milestone based funding, which has its own challenges in Catalyst, but it is one option. And
Can you expand on that last thing
right,
you said about the milestone
right. So
modality?
instead of breaking up a project and its payments on a monthly basis, right? As we've been doing in Catalyst so far, mostly. You would define, my understanding is that you would have to define milestones, and then as you hit these milestones, that is when payment gets dispersed, which would have been incredibly helpful for us as well. At the beginning of the year, we overpaid a bunch of developers that did not deliver like as specified, and you still pay them because they're on a monthly cadence. You essentially almost pay them like an employee, right? Which has its own challenges, which is just not a good outcome if you have something that's project based. And you do your best to kind of estimate all of that and take the ADA value also into account. I mean, that's a operational challenge, but yeah. So I think there's an opportunity there that potentially for Fund 10, right? You can have I know like Swarm, for example, even though I've read some, I caught up on some of the conversations around working groups. So the bounty system is not perfect, right? But I think as people would like to embrace that type of work, there's opportunity to have more ad hoc projects where you can say, okay, this is the project overall, right? And you have project manager that know enough about the how it would be implemented, so you can break it up into fair chunks or have that ADA value associated with it, and you can kind of work independently, right? There is always going to be pressure to do a timely implementation, and especially if you get payment or milestones based, the danger is always people taking shortcuts. So if it's like a critical piece of infrastructure, it comes down to the people being very diligent about implementing that properly and not be driven by, I can go 80% there, it works like 80% of the time and I still get my money, but I can, do that in 3 days versus, okay, I need a 100% completion, but it's going to take me almost a year, right? And it's the same dollar amount. It's like, maybe I should aim for like 90% or so. Nobody will find out because nobody uses Cardano, right? So kind of like edge case scenarios. But then if you have massive scale, right? Like I talked to a director of engineering for APIs at Netflix the other day. He was telling me, it's like, yeah, one of the APIs hits 1 million requests every second. And I'm thinking, geez, who's talking to whom? Like, are people constantly in front of the TVs? But it's at that scale, it matters, right? If you're the financial operating system of the world, it's like, no, you need to hit the 100% success rate, right? So, but yeah, I think there's an opportunity to have like milestone or like bounty based funding.
Yeah. I just wanted to plant a seed on your mind because I know you are
Right.
developing this company and many other people around you, because that's huge. I mean, we have to do something because all these, what will happen? Eventually, people just will leave, just go somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. Talking about that, right?
And Catalyst, yeah, and Catalyst is not Catalyst provides. I like Catalyst a lot. I think it provides a lot of exposure and the capability for people to really build up projects and test the projects with people. That's awesome for that. Not necessarily for funding, as we experienced in the last funding. I mean, it was as James says. I remember that. I was there since Fund One, but Fund Three per se was awesome because it was less than 100 people, so everybody will know each other, and yeah.
My
But
voting actually counted back then, probably.
right. So yeah, so Catalyst is not a solution for funding, but the reality is that the problem right now is on funding. And I know there are opportunities because there are a lot of um, funding companies that will die to have, like the guy who got the Elon Musk ideas when he was thinking of doing PayPal. That's exactly the moment we are living now, and nobody's taking advantage of that. So, I mean, it's
Right. I believe there will be a lot of strong companies coming out of this recession. It's going to take a while, but I do believe there's going to be very hugely successful companies that have an impact. And I'll do my best that Logs is going to be one of them.
Of course it was going to be, for sure. What do I say?
But yeah, regarding funding, right? I always look at, I always mention this at the beginning of the year. I attended my first Stellar Foundation webinar, so like very different than like town halls, for example, right?
Right.
But I had the opportunity to ask my question and in the Q&A section, and it was addressed. And my question back then was, hey, I remember, you probably heard it already, but just wanted to make a point because I asked, hey, what happened to the $15 million investment that Stella gave to RTM? They were doing some work in Latin America. And their response was like, mind you, $15 million, right? Oh, they hired a really great management team. That's it. That was the answer. $50 million, right? At the same time, and Catalyst, you're expected to change the world with 20K. That's the issue. Like, we are severely underfunded. Like, it's ridiculous. It's so right.
No, and,
Right,
and
you're
as a,
laughing, Alex, but you look at these other ecosystems, right? And I absolutely love Catalyst. I think it's hugely flawed. Don't get me started on Circle. There's some
you have a lot of experience with, by the way.
I have a lot of experience with Circle, yeah, but
Circle, yeah.
also more so the individuals that in the last circle or the attempted circle or whatever, right? But yeah, absolutely, Alex. I was just in the chat. Somehow Cardano is the poorest of all blockchains in terms of money. Absolutely, and it should be.
Possibly,
That's
yeah.
what I think. And this is another disconnect, right? Because if you think about it, Catalyst would be the money in Catalyst. You could still do so much in developing nations, like the whole continent of Africa, right? the ADA value there goes a longer way, right? I mean, we paid several interns in Nigeria, I think one in Kenya, one in Ethiopia, yeah, but mostly in Nigeria, right? And like even $500 monthly internship, right? Which would be like if you have a paid internship in the US for a software engineer, $500 is like
A lot
really,
of money.
yeah, but over there it's like a lot of money. Like, you know, it's better than most full-time software engineering positions. And right, so you can make a lot of impact. But again, the way voting works, right? And you know, I don't think Fund 10 we have a Grow Africa, Grow Cardano challenge again. And my question again is like, if you really care about unbanking the unbanked, why is there not a separate bucket for funding for those challenges? And that's not othering. Well, maybe it is othering, right? But if it's core to the mission, if you say this is the mission, and I get it, the mission should be set by the Cardano community, but again, this is not how it works. Charles Hoskinson, you know that guy, Charles Hoskinson, is a prominent person. He kind of sets the tone for many, right? And often it seems like there's a little bit of an opposing force, and that's not necessarily bad, but people act on that. They listen to the people that get more a bigger stage, like Rick, for example, right? And then it's like, oh yeah, let's not fund women, let's not fund the climate, let's not fund, you know, all these other important things. I only care about the tech. I was like, well, if you only care about the tech, why don't you ask Immortal to give money back to IO so they can, you know, hire more people and do the thing they're supposed to do, which is the tech, right? So yeah, it's ridiculous, like the whole funding scenario, and it's like I said, it's so ridiculous that we even didn't get a freaking phone call with Immortal.
Right.
Like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, I have no idea. Like the best that Immortal does is I think they gave Sebastian a job. I don't know. Hopefully he gets paid, but I see Immortal Academy, right? But again, this is probably based on what I've seen, also not the level that is needed. Like, not all of it, right? Does he do a good job or not? I don't want to comment on that. He probably does, right? But there's more needed, and it's
I think
ridiculous.
right. I think the problem with Catalyst is not only the funding, which is a huge one, but also the strategy to make sure that all the funding that is provided is effective, because there is no surveillance. There is not show me KPIs. I mean, in
Right.
like it's a stable and sustainable way to ensure that those projects are going to do what they say they would and continue and be sustainable. And I think that's what I think that the biggest issue is, because funding, well, you always control the amount of people that they say you can do a cap on proposals. We only have 100 proposals this funding term, and that's it.
Yeah.
But the surveillance and the human part, the Voltaire part, that's what I see is challenging, because nobody has anything on that. It's just all no.
That's the thing, though. Catalyst is not defined, right? Because you hear sometimes, oh, yeah, it's the largest decentralized innovation fund of the world. Then it's an experiment. It's not an experiment. If it's an experiment, we're
It's a
the
good
lab
excuse.
rats, right?
Being an experiment is the best excuse to shut it down and to do whatever you want to do with
Right.
it.
It's an incentivized Voltaire testnet, right? But yeah, is it really an innovation fund? Because that's the thing, though, right? If we need to, like in Catalyst, we are not allowed to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And even if, like, because we got called out for our Fund 6 proposal, right? Where we wanted to have mediators AI use a Prism. Got funded. Was the first Prism challenge, got funded. I think we got 40K or something like that for that. No, I think it was 20. Anyway, it was a fairly large amount of money because we also had no idea how much Prism would actually cost us because they never published that. It's not a free service that anybody can use. And people didn't realize that, right? Anyway, so it's held against us. Like, yeah, you haven't finished the Prism challenge. It's like, yeah, the moment I signed up for Prism Pioneers and got the memo that, yeah, this is not going to be on mainnet for a while, I'm not wasting my time. Like, and you know, for the first couple of months, we were like, okay, you know, let's look at this, look at we understood that, and because we had to before already, right, to write a proposal. But again, it's like, dude, it's not even on mainnet. Alex, in my opinion, Catalyst's main innovation is that a set of people can, in theory, decide how to distribute common pool funds. Yeah, that is fair within given constraints. But yeah. But then, oh, does anyone of you know anything about the Catalyst natives? I hear Carter Shift is in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, I'm involved with that, representing one company yeah, you know, they went out of funds and because of the valuation, and that's something. I mean, it's sad, but in reality, I mean, I think that's something that they will, because they started that when the bird market was about to start. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. But yeah, I mean, they are doing their best, and I think they will provide 50% to everybody. Maybe
It wasn't agreed though. It wasn't agreed to, and plus they raised before. They raised $10 million before, and then they did another raise. They did the card tokens or whatever, right? So, because I heard that there's some conflict, so I got encouraged by one of our mentors to reach out to Carter Shift. So I sent Vincent a message a couple of days ago, but
you know,
haven't heard anything.
we had a meeting. They had a meeting. I actually not on the proposal as a participant, but I like the proposal. I've been supporting them a lot. It's called Water from Air, and it's made by a scientist, and she's a biologist and scientist, and it has a lot of future. That's a very good idea. They are not asking. They are asking only for $11,000. But then, you know, the only way to do that is they get the whole amount of money. You know, so now to deliver they have to outsource from somewhere else, and there is a planting of avocados that is dying because of the drought, and they didn't. The community didn't go and get other resources because they were promised that they will get the tower that will provide the water. So, but that's the specifics of this project. But then as far as the funding, they when I went there and explained to them that you know the arguments and all that, why it was important for them to have the funding. One of the things that they say is we cannot do exceptions. You know, we have to go. I know it's not a lot of money, but we cannot do exceptions. So we are in the middle of that to see we got funding 100%. So
did IO say anything about it? Because it's probably Chris who brought them in, right?
Chris, and Daniel, Danny, they were there on this last meeting because they were brought in. But yeah, at this point is conciliatory. Sebastian did a proposal with the Jimba Labs, and they said no funding for you, and he said, okay, I understand, no problem. So let's see how it goes. Let's see how that comes. But I don't think there will be any conflict. I think people will settle, and yeah. because it's
I
kind of
mean, I mean, it's a conflict, but yeah, if they settle, but that's fine. But what are the repercussions out of that, right? Because Cartership appeared to be one final, like finally a decent launch pad, right? And now they're also pulling that
and
shit.
it's not.
Um,
And also they as you said, they had money before, so it's a matter of just it was. I think it was a they did not forecast how bad or how low it will go with the bear market, which is something that everybody forecast because um, even the people that made this proposal they had that in mind. So,
yeah,
but yeah,
I calculated it back in January when we did our token sale. I was like, yeah, it's gonna probably go down to 40 cents, and it was,
30. No,
way above. And it was like, yeah, I mean, I was wrong, but I was like, I thought, yeah, this is gonna be very pessimistic, right? But then again, I
yeah,
could
but
be totally wrong,
nobody was expecting FTX to be
right?
to be where he is right now. Where they
Which
are right
shouldn't
now.
matter to us anyway, but
Yep, it does affect everybody. I
yeah,
think.
yeah, of course, the whole crypto market.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
But I think
it's a
it's going to come
volatile, and it's. I'm sure there are so many market manipulators right now, so
exactly.
that's true. But yeah, man, that sucks. I mean, the other thing though is right because I'm honestly a little bit surprised that IO doesn't hold them accountable. But then again, um, I mean, we got our first funds for Fund 9 for the funded projects on Monday. It's like a month behind. And like, are you serious? You can make just a decision and you say it's like, oh yeah, we had some problems. And
Well,
like,
waiting for the coin to go up.
yeah, that's
and,
that's
and it went
ridiculous.
down, so we better pay now.
Yeah, it's like they do that. It appears. I have no idea, but I don't think they. Yeah, I don't know. But it
I
was
don't
a
I
bad
just
decision. I mean, they said it on the day that it was supposed to get the funds. It was like, oh yeah, there's gonna be like probably a 2 week delay, and then it turned out to be a month, right? And I was like, dude, our timeline said we're gonna have this workshop, and it was supposed to start earlier. And I was like, yeah, I have no idea what's gonna happen. So that's kind of like why last minute we was like, okay, when are you available? Because that's the thing about Renata, is like also like she's so super booked that it's like, okay, I started talking to her half a year ago. I was like, hey, by the end of the year, I want to have like a training for my employees at Logs, potentially something bigger, right? And then we made it into a catalyst proposal.
awesome.
And I mean, that kind of worked out, but still, it's like, it's like IO doesn't think about those things. I think they just don't put themselves into the shoes of their stakeholders,
Right.
like
I
whether
mean,
that.
yeah, I think it has to do with experimenting. I bet it's going to is like that. The same way IOG South America, the team that is working with South America, they are a bunch of very well-known expert engineers and all that, but they didn't have any experience, no experience, I guess, and not. And I'm talking about. I'm guessing. I'm not. No, this is not based on anything, but by conversation with them. But they don't have like a specific. They are just. In other words, they are putting together the teams to see how to put together. They did an event in Panama, which was a great success. Yeah, because it's like selling Coke in the desert. You, you know, but then the idea now for them is they may have a lot of business, a lot of opportunities, and they have to start tabulating and seeing what to do. I was in Costa Rica and I found an opportunity, and then I went to Mexico and I find another opportunity that is linked with a company in Spain with 5 different other companies, and they just didn't want to do anything with it because they didn't know they were not ready for that. They just started. So it's like that. They are it's like the way we are starting companies. We don't make a business plan that is completely detailed and organized, but we got the money, go and do. And that's what it is, because what, they have a lot of money. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's based on
There's value in a business plan, but yeah, I didn't create one for locks.
no, you're planning on
Oh,
loss
white
because
paper.
you are working with low resources. I mean, with limited resources, I guess, or known
Even,
resources.
yeah, even though, because I have a small business on the side, which I haven't done anything for like the past 2 years, really, but it's still, generating some revenue. But yeah, I, long story short, I was put in contact with a small business administration, and it was like, okay, show me your business plan. I was like, really? I was
That's
like,
the first thing
and
they
I
ask.
wrote this business plan. It's like, this is really good. I was like, yeah, waste of time. And they're more suited for brick and mortar
Right,
businesses. And my small business wasn't even a startup. It could have been one, but it's like no. So
right. No, I think it's a different level. Anyway, hey, super duper conversation. Thank you so much for your time. It's been
yeah,
awesome.
thank you for letting me vent. I was more that than anything else.
No, that was awesome. Very good, very good. No, I hope I was able to kind of open my mind in a few ideas that I think can be used, and also concern about not only for looks and the swamp and pest analysis, but the reality that we are living in our in our ecosystems, and there are opportunities there that can be tapped too. So
Yeah, and I'm gonna think about it more. Like maybe there's some not like full on solutions to help with the people that are laid off, but I think about it some more. I think there might be some opportunity that we
right,
can facilitate that they can help themselves better,
right.
right?
And also, right, and also, let's say with Gimbal Labs, the coin, I mean, the gimbal is there, and but
Yeah.
still it's something that is not going
Yeah.
to. We need something faster and
Yeah,
for,
Jonathan
for the people.
reached out to me recently because, and I saw it on the mirror board that thinking to, for some state pool operators that you also qualify for, to offer some gimbals. So I'm actually thinking of providing also gimbals to at least mediators in a
Great,
mediator session, maybe even parties that use our service. I'm not
right?
sure, but
That's good.
I want to spread it more and see what we can do with it.
You have gimbals because I do have gimbals and I want to move them too.
Yeah, I got uh, when I was paid for the first cohort of the Pluto's project-based learning, there was a little bit of market crash, and James was like, sorry, would you accept some gimbals instead of ADA? I was like, yeah, sure. So I got a few
Super,
gimbals
super,
there.
super.
So
If you ever
personally.
if you want to diversify, if you need some, let me know.
Thank
So
you.
at least we got gimbals.
This sounds enticing. Yeah, no, I definitely want to move to a place to, and that's also the thing, right? One of the recent calls that I've been part of is like, okay, well, do you want gimbals to be interoperable with other blockchains? Because if not, we're always tied to whatever the absolute market cap of ADA is, right? We cannot be
Right.
moved beyond it. And if, Cardano stays at whatever, I don't know, 14 billion or whatever it is, right? But then we as a community and have this hopefully, expand and have this network effect and make this into something like a currency. Hey, SEC, don't quote me. I'm going to move this part out of the conversation, maybe. But essentially, to treat it as a store of value, currency, whatever it is, that is worth more than actually ADA, we would have a problem, right? Because it's like, okay, we built a $1 trillion economy within our network of Gimbal Labs in France, but ADA itself is like 13 billion or whatever. It's like, That doesn't work, right?
Right,
So,
right.
but I don't know anything about that, so it's just a thought that I had in mind.
Right. I think yeah. Anyway, we need to find a way to move them and to give them value. But yep. Anyway,
Yep, definitely. And then we can buy all 8 of the gimbals.
right.
Absolutely.
I have a few.
Nice. And replace IoT. Definitely. Yeah, they need to get out of the picture at some point.
Exactly.
I'm sure they will.
Anyway,
But hopefully in a nice way.
Oh yeah. By the way, very good session of PEST and SWOT. SWOT.
All right. Thank
Very
you.
good.
I'll see you tomorrow, I guess.
Sure, for sure. I'll be here tomorrow.
Awesome.
Alex, are you coming tomorrow?
I see a
Super.
thumbs up.